One Saturday morning, Robert woke up with a mission, getting the new Lego Star Wars set that he really wanted. He had just graduated from preschool, and his parents promised him a trip to the toy store as a present. So like most 5-year-olds on the way to get new toys, Robert had a one-track mind, and he knew what he wanted to accomplish that morning. So from the second he woke up, he talked about that Lego set nonstop. At breakfast, in the car, sitting in his car seat, it was all that he could talk about. But despite Robert's clear vision for the morning, Robert's mom was a working mom, and she had some errands to run. So even though Robert got in the car to go to the toy store, they stopped at the bank. Robert was confused and asked his mom, "Why are we at the bank? I'm going to the toy store." She replied, "We need money to pay for the toys, sweetie. We're going to get there, don't worry." That made sense to Robert. You need money for the Lego set? Cool, we're going to the toy store next. But then they stopped at the dry cleaner. He could understand getting money at the bank, but the dry cleaner, that did not quite make sense to him. His mom tried to placate him, giving him the free candy from the front, and told him they were getting to the toy store soon, so he accepted the stop. But he stayed focused on his goal for the morning, that Lego set. He announced his ultimate destination to everyone that he saw, hoping that he could will it, or at least speak it, into being, no matter where his mom took him that morning. The same pattern continued a few more times. The hardware store, the pharmacy, the bakery, and then finally they got to the toy store. Robert immediately ran inside and picked out his toy and called to his mom, "I'm so glad we are here. This was the only thing that I had planned for today." As Robert's mom drove away from the toy store with her now happy son in the back seat, it dawned on her that in some ways, maybe she should be more like her 5-year-old. From the moment he woke up, Robert had one goal: to get that Lego set at the toy store. No matter what happened, he never let that goal out of his mind. Even though the journey took a number of unexpected twists and turns, the bank, the dry cleaner, the hardware store, he never let his sight get in the way of his vision. No matter what he saw around him, no matter how many things that did not go as he had planned, he remained focused on his ultimate goal, and eventually, with persistence and his mom's help, he was able to reach it. This story may seem silly, but it has stuck with me for over a decade since I heard it from Robert's mom at my Teach for America graduation. While, of course, as an adult, life is a little bit more complicated than a new preschool graduate, the message of Robert's story is one that I think is important for all of us to remember on a daily basis. Never let your sight get in the way of your vision. In the midst of the daily grind, often we find ourselves bogged down by nitty-gritty details of our lives, forgetting or simply unable to lift our heads up from the immediate things we see in front of us. Far too frequently, we let our sight get in the way of our vision. Today, in keeping with the theme of remaining connected to ultimate vision and not getting overwhelmed by detail, I want to focus on the big picture of what happens in our Torah portion, Truma. Truma, as a Torah portion, is, I think, emblematic of our tendency to allow sight to overpower vision. So this week in the Torah, we are given a long list of very, very detailed instructions about how to create the Mishkan sanctuary that I mentioned before, the Holy Tabernacle. Nothing is left up to the imagination in this week's Torah portion. The gold, the goat's hair, the acacia wood, the lapis lazuli, everything is described in 96 verses of seemingly endless detail. The Torah gives us such vivid, specific descriptions of the Mishkan that for centuries, scholars and artists have used the words of this Torah portion to create intricate images and dioramas of the Mishkan, just as described in Truma. But amidst all the lavish detail, however, Truma has broader and deeper wisdom to offer us about the challenge of balancing sight and vision. The Parsha opens with a clear instruction from God. Daber el b'nei Yisrael, vayitchu li truma me'et kol ish asher yidvenu libo tikhu et trumatai. Tell the Israelite people to bring me gifts. You shall accept gifts for me from every person whose heart is moved. Several verses later, the ultimate purpose of all of these gifts is revealed, stating, as we just sang together, Ve'asu li mikdash v'shochanti b'tocham. Make me a sanctuary so I will dwell in their midst. Despite the many details that follow the commandments of forming that sanctuary, at its core, Truma is about God outlining a plan for how we can build a place for God to dwell among us. Yes, there are 96 verses of details and dimensions that are intended to help the Israelites towards that goal, but they're not the main point of the Parsha. Focusing solely on these details puts us in danger of losing sight of the ultimate vision, the importance of creating and contributing to holy space in our communities. In many ways, our tradition has urged us to not allow our sight to get in the way of our vision. Shabbat, as we celebrate each week, asks us to slow down and make time to rest and reflect each week, and our intricate system of daily and holiday prayers is designed to ground us in our connections with God every single day. Sometimes, however, the details of our tradition can bog us down, preventing us from seeing and fulfilling the vision that they are trying to create. For example, there's a practice of reciting 100 blessings a day to try. The Talmud teaches us that it is a way to connect with the divine by striving to say 100 blessings each day to steep your regular routines in gratitude. At every step along the way, find something to be grateful for and connect it to God. Originating in the Talmud in Emanu-El, the sages created this practice using wordplay from a verse in Deuteronomy that asks, Ma, what, the Hebrew word, does God ask of you? In Hebrew, the words for ma, what, and me'ah, 100, are very similar. So the sages say, in order to remind us of what God wants, we should say ma becomes me'ah, and we should say 100 blessings a day. But unfortunately, if you comb through rabbinic sources about this practice, you might think you would find commentary about the original verse and the reasoning of why we say these blessings. But instead, you find a lot of concern about what are the 100 blessings, how should you say them, what time should you say them, and how you can integrate them into your day. From a modern perspective, the purpose of this practice is not actually the 100 blessings themselves, but using those blessings to connect to the divine in the world and develop a sense of gratitude. Intended as a plan to build space for holy encounters like the Mishkan described in Truma, and yet most engagement with this practice falls into the trap of only counting and not envisioning. As is all too often the case, sight overpowers vision, and the rabbi's well-intended message gets lost in the details. As each of these different examples of intention gone astray have shown us, this notion of not letting your sight get in the way of your vision is really complicated and difficult to achieve. Though it's easy for us to identify with Robert and his clear vision in the story about the toy store, in reality, most of us are much more often in the position of Robert's mom, struggling to see the end goal in the midst of all the details. It's easy to maintain vision when your only job is to get a Lego set, but it is a lot harder when you're managing the daily realities and logistics of work, family, friends, pets. The list goes on and on. So, how can we keep Robert's laser focus on mission while still giving attention and credence to all the peripheral concerns we see along the way? It's a never-ending process, and it requires grounding ourselves in the intention setting that Truma at its core tries to imbue. Take a step back from all the details and remember the broader importance of creating and contributing to holy space in our lives and in our communities. The most effective way to do this is to, again, channel your inner Robert and ask yourself why, and then why, and then why again. Asking why is one of the most effective ways to uncover purpose and intent. By the time you've asked yourself why 3 times and answered it honestly, I promise you, you will have clarity about what the intention is in the moment. Sometimes this honest inquiry will yield an intention that you may not feel is meaningful or special, but sometimes you'll find a purpose where you don't usually think of one. Either way, you will have helped yourself separate your vision from your sight. Understanding purpose, seeing your vision, so to speak, is the first step towards a life of purpose. When you think about the whys of your life, you can appreciate how even the smallest details or mundane tasks are in service of something broader and more deeply meaningful and holy for you. Just as each of the details of the holy sanctuary that we read about in Truma this week helped God dwell among the Israelites, with intentional actions, our small choices aimed at broader goals can add up too. When you look at life through the lens of intention, when you don't let your sight get in the way of your vision, it is my hope that we will be reminded of the opportunity to do purposeful and holy work every day.